Call to order the February 20th, 2025 Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee. Before we get to the approval of minutes, I just wanted to, this will be probably a multiple meeting reminder, just so we can all remember. Try and keep comments, I'm talking to us up here, not you folks. Keep comments, pretty direct and to the point and not rambling. I know I'm guilty of it. And also, don't start talking until you've been recognized. And if I'm looking one way and someone's trying to get my attention, tell me so I look and call them to be recognized. So that's just for keeping the meetings running smoothly. All right, so number 2, approval of the January minutes. Do we have,
do we make the amendment first?
I think, do we have to make a motion first and then amend it? Or do we make the amendment and then just vote on approving it?
You could make your, you could say what your amendment is,
Okay,
yeah.
there.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I found the language in the second paragraph under the committee member input to be a little bit confusing, and was suggesting a couple, what I think are minor edits just to make it clear. And I've passed so that would suggest that it reads, David Philbrick commented on the speed study, stating that the posted speeds were posted when the streets were really different than the current character of the street and the surrounding community. However, the speed limits haven't been reviewed. He suggests, and then goes on as written, he suggests that the speed limits be reduced.
Okay.
And I wanted to tack on to that too. The following paragraph where it says Chair de Blasi shared an article, it should say from the Salem Statesman Journal. And the article was about a rural community getting grants. And I was just using that as an example that we could follow, even though we're urban. So I would say
Salem Statesman's Journal.
Statesman Journal on, I would say, just say need for grant funding,
Okay.
grant writing
Okay.
for funding, and that would be fine.
All right, I make a motion, we accept and approve the minutes with the 2 amendments.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, we have 1 abstention. Before I move on to the next appearance of interested citizens, I wanted to congratulate Brenda for being elected to vice chair while she wasn't here. I at least saw the ambush, but be that as it may. Okay, so, yes? Yeah, so we will now move to the appearance of interested citizens, and this is a time for residents and citizens to comment on a topic that is not on the agenda. We will start with Tammy Kunz.
Tammy Kunz, Greater Northeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association. Mine actually is on the agenda. It's for the NTSP that we submitted. Matt was supposed to take the lead for that.
May I just interject? If that was what you wanted to talk about, should we just have Tammy wait?
Until then.
Wait
Yeah.
until then.
So if you have anything else to discuss, that'd be fine.
No.
Okay. All right, so moving on, let's see, Ron Raleigh?
I'm sorry, I won't be speaking.
Okay, you just, okay. Rachel Navarro. And if you could state your name and city of residence, just for the record.
Rachel Navarro. I live here in Kaiser.
Okay.
I actually live off of Alder.
Okay.
And so, my concern is off of Alder.
Is your mic on? Should have a red button that's got a light.
Yes. I live off of Alder. So particularly at 4 o'clock when Claggett gets out, and I do have pictures, traffic right there, the parents just park right in front of our houses. It's hard to get out. I've already put up signs, please don't block our driveway. They block, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like a little curve. They park in front of the park. They block the curve. It's already got to the point where my child goes to Head Start. The bus won't even drop my child off anymore. I have to walk all the way to Brooks to pick up my child. So I don't even know what to do about the traffic. There's signs that say, do not park in the bike lanes, and they continue to park up and down the street in the bike lanes. I mean, it's at 4 o'clock. I just don't know what to do anymore about the situation.
And I'm Don Davis from the Neighborhood Association, Southeast Neighborhood Association, and I see the exact same things. And one other thing that happens that we're hoping can get taken care of is in the park itself, right next to the park, there is, well, people park there, and there's no signs that say, there's a sign in the park that says, you know, the park's only open, you know, from dusk to dawn, but there's nothing on that place where they park that says like the same thing, like, you know, you shouldn't be parking here overnight. And we've had homeless, you know, park their cars there and overnight so they could use the porta potty. And the other issue that comes there for part of that traffic and everything is they will park waiting for their children in that spot, you know, completely fill that. The problem is there's a couple people that are neighbors that don't have enough parking in their own, that they park there. So it creates even more of a problem for coming around that corner off of Alder.
So could you give me I know you said around 4 o'clock, is it like from 3:30 to 4:30, would you say?
Yeah, it's usually like,
When does school get out at
school
Claggett?
gets out at 4 o'clock, but it starts
They-
to happen like 15, 20 minutes before, and then it runs like till 4:30, 4:45-ish. Like I said, I mean, I've taken pictures, I have videos, because I've just been like, this is just too much. Like, what do we do here from now on? Because like I said, I had to have a sign made, like, don't block my driveway. I had to tell them, can you guys please move? Like, I can't even get out. Like, to the point, like, you're blocking my mailbox.
Right. And as far as I know, it's a standard rule or a standing rule that you're not supposed to block driveways. Is that correct? Unless you live there and you're kind of temporarily parked in front of it.
Yes. The biggest issue we have, sorry, I'm kind of losing my voice, is it says no parking there.
There's signs, yes, they say no parking.
Unfortunately, by the letter of the law, they're not parked because it's an occupied vehicle. They're just merely stopped. So it makes it really hard to make it enforceable.
So what about the curb, where it doesn't say no parking, but it's still a curb?
Are you like all Arnold and
So
BB?
it's Gary, it's like where Gary turns into BB. They park there, like, I have pictures clearly that they're parked there. That's not,
But they're still in the vehicle.
they're still in the vehicle.
Yeah, that's the legal issue there is they're not really parked. They're just stopped. So it's like when you go up to the airport, you can momentarily stop to pick up and drop off people where normally you can't park.
For 20 minutes?
There's that, it makes it, the letter of the law and the way it's written, it makes it a little hard to enforce. And I'm fully aware of it. I've tried, I don't know if I've done it this year yet, but I went up there, it's just, there's not a whole lot of options that I can come up with. It's mostly just school congestion, and unfortunately, we've had a lot of people where they block, or momentarily will block a driveway, and some disturbances have occurred.
Hirsch?
I just have some questions. This has happened elsewhere. Lamb Elementary in East County area had the same thing happen. It's over by Chemeketa, and Marion County sheriffs enforced it, but they had to back off just because of what you just said. And how Lamb tried to address it, and I'm asking this, has the two schools, that would be both Weddell and Claggett, have their administration been approached? Because that's what Lamb did. They actually got a parent group kind of monitoring, giving training out. Kaiser Elementary has done the same since they've done because they have not as acute problem as yours because they're kind of in a dead-end street, but they have parking in the bike lanes and everything, and there were some complaints. I'm just asking, has that happened through the neighborhood association? I know you have some good contacts with the school, but
Yeah, we have not done that.
We haven't approached them about that issue
Yeah.
because we've had other issues
That we've
that
approached,
we've
yeah.
been trying to work with
To pick our
because we've
battles.
had like graffiti gangs, fighting that we've been trying to control as well. And so we've been trying to pick our battles on what to control. And so we've been working with the school on those issues. And then like this was kind of like something we've been putting on the back burner, but it's just been,
I completely empathize
Yeah.
because it has happened at several other elementary schools, but yours is more acute because you have two schools right there.
there.
As to parking by the park overnight, unless it specifically says no parking, that's legal, correct?
Well, that's what we don't
So can
know.
we do something about that then?
Oh, is
Can't
that
there-
illegal to park in that parking lot?
No, it's the same as parking on
Anywhere.
anywhere on the right of way, as long as that vehicle's being driven every 3 days per ordinance, they're okay.
Even if it's part of the park? That's what
That's
I
what we
don't
don't know.
understand.
Is that strip, is that like city parking or is that park parking or is that like public parking? Cause that's what we don't know is that, what does that side street, or is that even parking? Cause before it was
Yeah.
just a ditch and this summer it just got filled with rock.
Can you speak to that, Mike, because you know what they're talking about? It's,
No, I know where you're talking about, but to answer your question, it's a public street, and so parking for both people that live there and for those who use the park, so it's both, and the overnight thing, I can't address that one. I don't know if that's an enforceable, I would assume.
How about,
Is this a parking lot?
No,
No,
Just a wide spot in the road?
well,
not even,
really.
it's against the park. You've got, Ben Miller Park,
Yeah.
and it's, I don't even know what street that's called. Is that part of Alders or part of?
it's BB.
Okay, BB, it's its own street. So, right there next to the trees by the park,
It was
there's-
just like a ditch that
Yeah.
kind of like got filled with,
Right.
with gravel during the summer and kind of like widened it a little bit to make it kind of parkable.
so my question is, if it is part of the park, can there be a sign there that, that's, as far as I'm concerned, the park's closed from dusk to, or dawn to dusk, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, whichever one it is. That why couldn't there be a sign like we have in the park that has park rules about not being in the park afterwards? And that's enforceable, I would think. So that people are not parking there, because what ends up happening is people have parked there and we've had, neighbors who have parked on the street that have ended up getting their cars hit because of the congestion.
is that ditch that's been filled in with gravel, is that part of the right of way or is that part of the park property?
It's part of right of way, and that would be under Robert Johnson and, with the parks as far as Ben Miller, and there is no parking lot for that park, and so people do need to access it, and so, a lot of people use that to, go to the park, and then you have school people and parents picking kids up too, so you have a lot of people vying for that parking spot, which is frustrating for you. I get it.
Just a right of way, basically.
Okay, so they're allowed to park
Okay.
there overnight then?
Is the, oh, David?
I just assume that there's no easy kind of overflow area where we could try to move the school congestion to a different location or that you know of.
No.
Can I make a, okay. Can you talk to the principals of the two schools
Yes.
about
Yeah.
this issue because it's, if they have a newsletter or something, and somebody can tell them something about parking. And then we can wait and see if that does any good, because some places that's what solved most of the problem. When the school got involved.
Is that what happened at Lamb?
Yes.
Yeah,
Now-
so, and then if that doesn't work, you could come back and we'll think about it again. I really don't have a real good solution, and, that we can tell you that worked everywhere else. Some of them never got solved.
Hirsch?
I don't know about this year at Lamb, but the year before last, when they had the big problem, and the Marion County came in and issued 20 citations, and it became a big uproar. All the citations were removed, and then the school got involved, and because they couldn't enforce it technically. And the resource that I would talk to is probably the principal at Kaiser Elementary, because they had the remodel and at the school, and parents, doing the pickup. So there might be a flow issue that the school hadn't thought about doing, because that's what they did at
Usually what the problem is they don't want to park in there to wait for their child, because getting out of there is a nightmare. And so
Well-
they will have their kid, they'll park on Alder, over by the school, not by the school, by the park and everything, and wait for their child so they can get out easier. But it causes other issues.
And we are I have a grandson that I'm responsible for that was at Clegg. There's a certain amount of middle school, they don't want you out there in front, kind of attitude,
the
but.
kids.
The kids, yes.
So-
I,
With the stopping versus parking, does that, even if it's in a bike lane, is that the same thing?
Yeah.
It is, unfortunately. And I have to speak, I know Alder, yes, because of the two schools and proximity and kind of the stop sign, the park, they do use exactly what you say. I've seen it multiple times. But unfortunately, it's not that isolated. Kennedy has it, Gubser has it, 14th will be lined with cars in a designated bike lane, and everybody's sitting there. There's not something that we can enforce our way out of. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's a way the school can fix it, because there's so many people that pick up their kids nowadays and will wait. I don't know how they have time to wait there for a half hour, 45 minutes every time, but they do that.
I know Clear Lake, that was a long time, it was 5 years. It did something, or talked to the parents or something, and they had them lining up on one side of the street only, and that was a long time ago, but they did something that lasted for a little while. I don't think the principle's even the same, but.
Sometimes you have cars facing the opposite direction, and I'm just all like, why
Yeah.
are you facing this way for?
Yeah.
And it's the
We were
opposite way.
I think it was Kennedy, and the people were parking on people's yards there for a while.
Well, so I think just talk to the school first, see if you get any traction, and come back next month, see if you've gotten anywhere with them.
And we'll put it on the agenda,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes, Hirsch?
following up on one of the other concerns is about the park, which we technically don't have any control, but about the rules for the park, which I really don't know about. Does it close at sundown? Does it do all this?
We have a sign in the park that says, here's the park
Okay.
rules, and it's closed after
But the parking, unlike like Kaiser Rapids or Claggett, there's no parking for the park, am I?
Right.
So if they're parked there, you're really in the street, not in the park. So the rules that are posted don't actually apply for that spot. Okay.
Wish we had a solution.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And like I said, please
Well,
talk to the
thank you.
principal and come back. Just to give us an update that
Whatever.
you're still talking. At least it'll be on our radar. Thank you. Okay, next we have Janine and Daniel Kidd.
My name's Janine Kidd, and this is my husband Daniel. We live on Park Meadow, between Meadow Glen and Wheatland. And we submitted the NTMP application, and it wasn't on the agenda, so I wasn't sure how we get the results of the traffic study or count.
Yeah, so because it wasn't on the agenda, then this was appropriate for you to come up. So yeah, we have the Park Meadow, west of Meadow Glen data. And it says a total of 1,613 cars, average speed 24.15, 85th percentile is 28, 50th is 23.8. What is the speed limit on them?
25.
25.
So, this is one of those things, I was out walking the other day and somebody went by me and, geez, that guy must be doing 45 and a 25, wild guess. I'm sure he was going faster than 25, but I don't know what you do about the one person every 400 that does, I feel sorry for the police department. One is if we had 10 times the policemen, and we could go station them there every day for 2 months, but unfortunately we can't. And so then you look at averages and I was out the other night and I swear somebody went down Wheatland Road, must have been doing 100. But that doesn't mean that Wheatland's dangerous, it just means there's some idiots out there. This looks, when I look at that, and I drive Park Meadow all the time, I hope I'm not one of the ones you think was speeding, but anyway, I never noticed that. And I thought that was a really neat, really wide area, even up by Wheatland where the curves are, because I was being careful. I wanted to see what would happen if I met somebody in there. There's lots of room. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna pay more attention to it, but there's plenty of room for four cars abreast, 2 parked and lots of that. I know some people get really nervous, but
David?
Are the vehicle counts on here in each case for 1 week or?
Those are all for a 7-day period, yes. 7 days, 24 hours a day. That was the total. And I can speak a little bit to the Park Meadow. Clear back last fall when this first came up, I went out there. Yes, I was in a patrol car, but I was positioned behind another parked car where my radar will pick up before they would ever see me. I've done this for enough years. I know my radar is picking up before they see me. And I found very light traffic and almost no speed to where after about, I think I was there for 2 hours and I got pretty bored based on your complaint. But then I put the survey up and unfortunately the survey backed up what I saw in person. Granted, I was there in only a 2 hour. But the survey did show, and I do have a few other stats, but in that 7-day period, I think I'll use your words. You've used Park Meadow was a racetrack or raceway. In that 7-day period, there were only 11 cars total. That speaks to your low percentage. 11 cars that were over 36 miles an hour. So it makes it really hard to sit there and dedicate to catch 11 of these true speeders. And there's a certain percentage of people that are going to speed regardless. whether you're there or not. My suggestion is, obviously, I can go up there and try to do some enforcement, try to catch those periodically. But I think a lot of it could be, perception. And I've done this a couple times, and this summer, when we get a little bit better weather, I will make arrangements. I think I've got somebody's email, or you guys have a way to get a hold of me. And I can go up and you pick the time and a nice day that you can dedicate an hour. And we'll literally, my patrol motorcycle will be out of sight, not even in use. We'll sit in your lawn chair in your driveway, and we'll just do a speed survey ourselves, and to see if your perception of speeding vehicles is actually justified by a radar.
Okay. I think we're pretty close to the four-way stop. So I think a lot of what we are seeing, I mean, obviously, they're not really getting up to a high speed in four houses. I mean, it's like,
sure.
well, it feels like they are, and it sounds like they are, because they're kind of taking off from the four-way stop and kind of launching down, heading west.
Yep.
So, maybe in front of our house it's not. I mean, I don't know where you put the actual sensors.
Is it lawn view? Is that, or field view?
Field view.
It was
That's
down
that's a
closer
ways down.
towards, yeah, it was closer to that, but it's in the middle of I chose an area that was in the middle of the longest part of the straight stretch.
Yeah.
So it would track the highest speed, theoretically, the highest speeds possible,
Okay,
so.
okay. Well,
Well, I'll agree with you. I think it's, it's not always the final speed number they're doing, but it is the acceleration rate. Another thing, for perception wise, if your street is generally quiet during the day and then you get car come by, even if it is, within a couple miles of the speed limit, it probably does seem a little fast because it has been quiet. I see that on my street too. And then sometimes you'll hear a vehicle and it sounds like it's going fast, but then as it finally does go past you, it may be not as fast as you perceived it to be. But I'm not saying that you're not seeing speeders, because obviously there are. Maybe when we get this data, if we could get numbers of vehicles in that period of study that were, greater than 5 miles an hour over the speed limit.
85th percentile.
Well, I mean, like raw number, like 10 cars, or
Oh,
that way we could see if it was 10 cars out of 1,600, that gives us more of a quick guess.
I did track that there were 11 over 36.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and 36, at that point, they're gonna start getting some attention.
Got the math guy here.
it really was only about 25 cars over,
Yeah,
over 28.
right.
And I kind of feel bad, because I know when something like that happens, I get all ticked off and I go in and try and get somebody to come and do something about it. And they go, well, it really is as bad as you think. And I'm going, yes, it is. I
well,
feel that way, and I kind of sympathize with you on that. But on the other hand, we don't tell the police where to go or what to do, but we know they are working on limited resources. And,
yeah, well, we'll just monitor it, and if we notice an increase, do we go back through the application process again? Or is there, an opportunity to get a speed reader board on loan for a week or something, just to maybe make people aware?
I can speak to a couple things. Yes, I can get, we do have the speed reader boards that we can put out there. As far as going through the application process, I'm not gonna say no, but based on the data and the volume of cars, it's a long ways away from ever meeting the threshold as far as that plan. But I would still offer, it could be educational for you and me as well, when we go out there and literally sit there and have a cup of coffee and have a conversation, and you guys tell me a speed if you think it's going really fast, and then I'll verify it or not, or debunk it, or whatever you want to consider that, with radar. And then that way we can both learn.
And I'm never opposed to having more police presence at my house, but for good reasons.
David?
Yeah.
Just one other question, kind of, and I don't know where this goes, but certainly some communities are considering lowering speed limits in residential areas to 20. And if, again, I don't know how one measures whether a street is unsafe at a particular speed, but if because of increased parked cars, the school, things it's perceived in the neighborhood that 25 is too high a posted speed limit, to me, that should be considered too.
So my question to the study, for the 11 cars, was it the time frame all over the place, or was it in more of a selected area?
They're in the printout, it tells you, it will, for me, it will tell me if there's a particular grouping or a time frame that these cars will go, and it was across the board. It was just random. There was no specific time. Hey, you need to be out there on a Tuesday at 3:00 in the afternoon. It was so not concentrated as speed, it did not give a preferred enforcement time.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
for doing the study, and we appreciate it.
Okay. Hirsch has one question.
I just have one question. This was during school times?
It was January, yes, I waited, because I
Okay.
think the last time we waited until after all the holiday sessions had been done from the schools, and it was during normal school week in January.
Okay, 'cause then we got the school traffic
Yep.
involved in that study. And I just want to make a comment that I'm starting to believe in the lowering the speed limit to 20 in residential. So I appreciate David's comments, so,
Looks like we have a cameo.
Yes.
a cameo.
Sorry to just interject here, but the conversation about working with Officer Powell to,
Perception.
thank you, the perception, this ties to something we had mentioned before that Chief Copeland suggested we work with McNary's Audio Video Club to get something put together so that our website can show this, so when such comments come up, you don't have to, keep repeating yourself. You could say, we do have a video to help explain what I'm trying to show you, and then you can decide beyond that what you want to do. So if you pull this together, can somehow we connect and see if that program is set in motion to maybe have them attend with you?
Yeah, it would be simply, speed is just time and distance on video, as long as we know that the frames per second, and then the distance of the vehicles that they travel through two known points, I can figure out the speed on a video. But there's those two variables that I would need to have.
No, I'm more thinking of they would document, like do documentary and showing what you're doing with the kids
Yeah,
at their house. in
and while
addition
they're
to-
doing it,
yeah.
at least then I could show them
Okay.
what would be required, so that they could actually do that themselves.
Okay,
Yeah, you can certainly use
thank you.
our street scenario
Okay.
For your video. I think it would be great.
Was somebody spearheading this?
Yes.
Okay.
I contacted her and she has not gotten back, but with this as a reminder, I'll contact, because I've also got a contact in with the principal.
Okay, great, because this is an opportunity whenever it comes together that they can maybe be involved with.
Now, that's the teacher that you gave me the information, yeah. I contacted her by email twice now and not a response, but teachers are really busy right at the first of the year, so I'm not finding fault, so I'll just do some more follow-up.
It took her a while to respond to my initial outreach too, so
Okay.
I'm not surprised. No,
Yeah.
I would just hate to lose this opportunity.
Yeah, all
Thank you,
right.
sorry to interrupt.
Thank you for the reminder.
What kind of distance, we're talking feet per second on cameras and stuff, what kind of distance?
Could you come closer to this?
You have to introduce.
Yeah. And your name?
Ron Raleigh, and I guess my question is, as far as the distance for cameras, I've got 10 cameras on my house. So if you need a distance from point A to point B and then figured feet per second, how long of a distance would you like to have a camera cover?
Well, there's a lot of variables with what you have. You'd have to get into the metadata of your video to figure out frames per second.
Yeah,
And if it's a slower frames per second, you're gonna require a longer distance.
Okay.
Because if you're only at 17 frames per second and you're only measuring over a 20-foot distance, you're so susceptible to where it's at, where that vehicle's actually at over that time frame.
Right.
The longer distance is obviously gonna be the best.
okay,
So, 50 to 100 feet would be more than ideal.
okay, great, yeah.
Well, I'll let you guys
Okay.
talk about that.
Good,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to come back up.
Next is Rob Witters.
Before I begin officially, I'm here with an application for the pedestrian flag program. Would you rather I waited until it was on, when it's on the agenda?
Yeah, that'd probably be better for that part, yeah. Thank you. Okay, Michael Welsh.
I've got nothing, I'm just here.
Oh, you just signed up? Okay. Let's see, we have a second page here. Is that Dan Davis? Did I get that right? Or Don Dawes? Okay. On Brooks Avenue? They left?
He spoke, they left already.
Oh, that was him, yes. Oh, right. Don Davis, yes, you're right, thank you. I will check that one. Dan and Gail George? Did I get that right? Are you here to speak or just you signed in? I'm not sure. If you don't have anything to speak and you just accidentally signed in, that's fine.
I didn't accidentally sign in.
Oh,
I'm interested in the bike part of it, speed limit and such.
okay, well,
Come on, well, come on up and tell us what you're worried about.
yeah, if there's a
Or thinking
specific,
about.
if you have a suggestion or a specific part of town that you have concern about, or,
No, just
and if you could give
generally.
us your name and your, city residence?
This thing working out?
I hope so. The red light on?
The other one might work for you.
Oh. Testing.
Yeah.
I assume you're supposed to press this switch, right?
If it looks like mine, there should be a silver button.
I guess it's on.
Yeah, okay. So again, name and, city residence?
Oh, I'm Don George. My wife Gail's back there. We live in McNary, so Kaiser. Actually, I read a article in the paper, I think it was, about this, I think it was this meeting was going to talk about bicycles, and what caught my eye was that the electric bikes were mentioned. And I'm pretty sensitive to speed limits on bikes, which I think they should be fairly low. I'm talking 20 miles an hour or something like that. And so I'm afraid that if there's a tendency to just come up with some figure and make that the speed limit for bikes when it may be too fast. I think speed limits should be fairly low. I don't know if you've ever ridden a bike 20 miles an hour, but if you have, that's clipping right along for the average person. So I'd like to see the limit be at 20, especially in view of, in the future, I think we're gonna see a lot more electric bikes. I mean, I see it, I'm interested in that sort of thing, but I've seen a real increase in the interest of it. And so I'd hate to have them, what really worries me is you get a bunch of people when they're electric bikes, and nowadays you can buy an electric bike that's gonna clip along 30 or 40 miles an hour, and they get out there in the bike paths, and pretty soon you have legislation, because these few people are going crazy, it becomes onerous on the rest of us. So,
Is there a speed limit for bicycles, including e-bikes?
E-bikes is, right now, there should not be capable, they're out there, but they should not be capable of going over 20 miles an hour. Now, then, right, what you said is 20 miles an hour is 35 feet per second, and a driver's perception reaction time is 1.5 seconds before I can even hit the brakes if I see something. So that bicycle, before they even see it, is nearly 50 feet down the road, and we're still gonna have a crash at 20 miles an hour. That's the danger of this high-speed e-bikes.
But there's no actual limit right now.
No, there is not.
Is there talk of one?
There was, somewhere, it was, somebody had a bill or, I can't remember.
It's pending in the legislature right now, and we really don't know any details. It's still in committee.
Yeah.
But it was more, not so much on speed, but defining, because what we learned is defining what bikes can be, what's a bicycle, what's a motorbike, what's a whatever, as far as being used on bike paths, sidewalks, and in the parks. The current Oregon law, which Officer Powell and I got to learn about here recently, really limits the e-bike capacity, the type of bike, to be even in the bike lane or even on the streets. Bicycles as a whole are bound by the same vehicle code for speed as any other vehicle. A regular bike, non-e-bike, you can hit 30 miles an hour with it. You have to be in pretty good shape.
Downhill.
No, I've done it on, downhill helps. But so e-bikes, your point about the e-bikes being more prolific and a lot of confusion on what is an e-bike assist versus a motorbike and stuff is well taken in it. Right now, it's in the legislature. Kevin Mannix is our local representative that I've already given some feedback to based on our issues. And yeah, e-bikes on a multi-use path or on sidewalks, the current law basically says they really should not be going any faster than a fast walk, which is about 6 miles an hour. So we do have some laws right now. Now on the streets, if the street is 20, I can go 20.
David?
I guess I was interested in just trying to understand what your concern is about cyclists riding faster.
Well, I'm mostly concerned about the actions of a few, but it becomes a problem for your average cyclist. And frankly, I think people who are speeding on a bike should get tickets just like if you were in a car, because it's pretty dangerous to hit somebody at 30 or, some of these bikes will do 40 miles an hour. You hit somebody like that, you could kill somebody doing that.
But I'm still not understanding. You're saying a few cyclists. So there are many cyclists that ride fast. You're saying a few cyclists riding fast make it dangerous or make it.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of.
So that all cyclists should be restricted. I guess I don't understand quite what you're.
Well, I came at it mostly from electric bikes, and they're, the average person on an electric bike can go as fast as the electric bike will go, and I'm worried about them causing legislation which is going to be bad for the cycling public in general. I mean, the electric bike users, as in legislating so they can't go in certain places that they could go if they rode at a reasonable speed. But so I'm hoping that those riders who are exceeding the speed limit, if it's set, that actually there's some kind of consequence. And I recognize that may be wishful thinking, because there may be more important things for law officers to deal with. But it's kind of about the quality of life too. We do need to be civilized and live in a safe environment.
If I may, I just want to clarify, are you possibly talking about the actual bike paths where people walk in our neighborhoods and then an e-bike comes whizzing by around a corner and it's the pedestrian's problem to get out of its way because it's so fast?
That's actually my biggest concern, yeah.
So that's something that because it sounds like all bikes should go slower, but the shared use paths with high-speed e-bikes coming around blind corners is frightening.
Yeah. Okay, well,
There is laws already saying if you're on a bicycle and you're on a multi-use path in a sidewalk, it's no faster than a fast watch, which is 6 miles an hour. So they would be in violation if they did cause destruction and stuff. There is, it can be litigated, correct? Yeah.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you, and I think we'll be following how that legislation goes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I came mostly as a spectator, I didn't really.
Okay, well, thank you
What
for,
happens.
yeah,
And if
get
you
drawn
don't
in.
show up, we may elect you to an office.
That's right.
That's scary.
Okay, well, it looks like there's no more people on the list, so we will move on to our presentation, and I will pass it off to Shane, our planning director.
All right, thank you, Chair DeBlasi and Traffic Safety, Bikeways, Pedestrian Committee?
Keep going, yeah.
Did I get them all? All right. Well, thank you, committee members. Thanks for allowing us to be here. Attending with me virtually is a consultant that the city has been blessed to get through some funding through the state of Oregon to help us do some work around walkable design standards for our city. And a few months back, I don't remember exactly when it was, but a few months back, I was back and we were talking about some different planning things. And this was one of the things that kind of came up in just a little bit of a way. And we kind of talked about how, hey, I'm going to be coming back to you guys in the future as we're working through some of these things. And so this is specifically a project that we're doing that is born out of what's called the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities legislation that kind of came through the state level. Mm-hmm. And this project specifically is one where Andrew and his team with MIG, they're helping us go through our development code and do a code audit. And then they're going to help develop some code concepts and ultimately resulting in some proposed code changes that will go through our planning commission process and ultimately to the city council for any changes that we need to make to be consistent with state statute as well as consistent with what we hear from our community. So mostly we're here to kind of give you a little bit of a show and tell. And with that, I will stop talking because Andrew is much better at presenting than I am. So Andrew, feel free to take it away.
All right, thank you, Shane. I'm assuming that you're all seeing my screen and can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, so again, Andrew Parrish, my company is called MIG. We are working with the City of Kaiser and other communities to basically do an audit of your development code to see the extent to which things meet the climate-friendly and equitable communities standards. These are kind of a bucket of regulations that were put in place to help the state of Oregon meet its climate goals, and they apply to jurisdictions with over 50,000 people, kind of in the Willamette Valley and then over there at the city of Bend and some southern Oregon as well. And there are a couple of groups of regulations that are addressed by those CFEC regulations. So that's establishing a climate-friendly area, which is basically a downtown, doing some parking reform, and then land use regulations to make sure that there are, there's thinking about creating walkable communities, creating kind of pedestrian districts, all with the intent of reducing greenhouse gases related to vehicle use. So yeah, the overall purpose of this section of the regulations is to create more compact, pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use development patterns in urban areas, so that folks on foot or on bicycles or transit riders can get around with reduced reliance on the automobile, making neighborhoods that are comfortable for people who are young and old, people who have mobility devices, so that they're not kind of left out of the public realm, and making mixed use districts that orient activity and entrances to the pedestrian realm so that walking is actually a more fun choice some of the time. These regulations have a couple of different kind of scopes of what they address. So there's sort of district-wide regulations, which are about how far streets are away from each other, what the zoning regulations are for residential and commercial developments, how dense are these. There's also regulations that apply just to the block. So what does internal parking look like? If you have to put buildings kind of in front towards the sidewalks versus having a big kind of expansive parking lot in front of your buildings, which makes a less desirable pedestrian realm, and then kind of specific individual lot developments. The overall goals of these things are reduced greenhouse gas pollution, cleaner air, better health outcomes, because people can choose to get out of their car more often, more equitable access, an increased quality of housing supply, or an increased supply of quality housing, and more transportation choices generally. So the state of Oregon has put together a guidebook, basically, of what this section of the regulations mean and what it might look like to implement, but they do give cities a lot of leeway in how they choose to apply this code language. But they had this kind of helpful graphic. So what we're seeing here is a quarter-mile walk radius on like a hypothetical location, and that's that dashed line. And there are some multimodal connections, so those are no car access kind of ways to get around. There's a connected street grid, so lots of opportunities to make the right street choice to get where you're going, so that you don't have a big windy curly queue that that winds up taking you a whole lot out of the way to get to your destination. Compact development where it's appropriate, so more activity, more people living in these areas, more things to do if you live in those areas. The parking lots are oriented behind the buildings so that if you're walking by them, it's not just kind of you versus a big parking lot, and public transportation choices. So what we are doing is looking at the zoning code and trying to identify where the City of Kaiser's code addresses pedestrian-oriented development and connectivity and compact development, and trying to see whether the code meets the state's requirements for having some thought about building orientation and frontage. So that's what the streetscape looks like, where the buildings are in relationship to the streets and the sidewalks, what ground floor design looks like in kind of the more urban parts of the city. Regulations for driveways and garages, and regulations for drive-throughs, as well as if you were to have a development big enough that it requires new streets, what would you be required to do and to dedicate as far as new street connections? How wide are those blocks? Are there pedestrian and bicycle kind of access ways that go through that? And just kind of taking a look for density and lot sizes and things to make sure that they are within a range considered reasonable, I guess, by the state. So we've done an initial audit, and we've come up with basically these recommendations. So this is for residential development. Currently, there's a 600-foot requirement, so for block lengths. So blocks need to be less than 600 feet. The state's kind of examples say, well, 350 feet should be the block length for kind of more central, more urban areas, and maybe 500 feet elsewhere, where you require a bicycle or pedestrian access way if it's greater than that 350 feet. Limiting cul-de-sacs is something the state has expressed interest in, and so we found some opportunities to do that in the City of Kaiser's code. Establishing maximum setbacks in some kind of more urban residential neighborhoods so that there is more sort of activity and more buildings closer to the street and closer to the sidewalk to create that pedestrian realm is something that that they've mentioned. And there might be an opportunity to do, and then using clear and objective requirements for housing, which is basically taking some discretion away, I guess, from which is required by the law. And whenever we're kind of touching housing like zones that are for residential uses, we usually talk about clear and objective requirements. For commercial and mixed use areas, kind of the same set of items that we found. That 600-foot block length requirement, trying to reduce that somewhere. And maybe just to back up, there aren't a lot of places where it seems like there's a new street that's going to happen. But these are just things that are in the development code in case there is an opportunity to get, you know, a large redevelopment that occurs. The city can say, hey, we really want a more kind of pedestrian district in this area. And so this would be on the books in case that happened. Putting parking lots behind buildings. So the CEO, the commercial office zone, currently has requirements to put parking lots behind the buildings, and we would suggest putting that requirement into other zones as well. Requiring buildings be oriented to the street, and requiring pedestrian connections and amenities of any kind of new developments. And then adding standards for auto-oriented uses, which is another word for kind of drive-throughs, that protect pedestrian movement and kind of make sure that if somebody was to build a new drive-through, you would need to be able to walk up to it too. Is kind of the main item there. I remember, you know, biking through many drive-throughs and then them not liking that too much. Being able to kind of access it without a car, I guess, is the idea. So the feedback that we're looking for today is, you know, which of these things sort of resonate with you all, and are there specific parts of the city or zones in the city that you think we should be paying special attention to? Maybe things that are likely to see more redevelopment, or things that you know are issues currently that we should be looking at in closer detail. And I'll let Shane kind of guide the conversation, but we have a draft audit that we've produced that we can provide to folks, and we'll be going to Planning Commission and City Council eventually with kind of a set of recommendations here in the near future. And I've got some maps that might help to sort of show the city, and we can zoom in on areas that we want to talk about.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so, I mean, committee members, I know some of these themes, I believe I heard some of these things mentioned a few months ago when I was here. And so that was kind of really why we wanted to come, was one, to make you all aware that we're in the midst of kind of looking at these things, and then also to get some input in those kind of specific areas if there are certain things that make a lot of sense. Things that you think are, oh, that's a horrible idea. Just kind of the general, wanted to give an opportunity to engage with you all. Felt like there's a lot of kind of subject matter experts in this room that sit at that dais, so.
Thank you. And I do have multiple things, but I'll ration mine out so everyone else gets to talk. So one question was about, you mentioned drive-throughs, and in addition to drive-throughs, is the curb cuts, you know, those all have effects on pedestrian and bicyclist safety. So coming out of this, can we have restrictions on those actual being on the ground as they are now, where we start closing some of these curb cuts or not allowing new drive-throughs?
I mean, I think definitely that's a possibility. It's always harder to take away something that's already constructed. That is the one thing that I think I would want to highlight just for a framing. A lot of the planning work that we do, it is for future, not so much for what's already built. So it is hard because sometimes we don't see changes as quickly as we might like to, depending on where we sit on the spectrum. But yeah, I do think there are some things in there that could be looked at. Now it's a little hard because some of those specific like quantified distance standards, for you said driveway approaches, for example, like those driveway approach standards, they don't actually live in my development code. It's not my development code, it's the city's development code, but I affectionately refer to it as mine. But it really, those specific quantified standards, they tend to live, most of the time, those will live more in our engineering documentation, so the public works design standards. The other piece is some of those items will likely be being looked at as we go through our transportation system plan update, which is going to be happening. We're out for an RFP on it officially now. So at some point in the future, that project is going to start pretty quick. So I think there is definitely opportunity. And what I would say is I would encourage you to provide those kinds of inputs as we move along. And the other thing I wanted to throw out there, I mean, I know you guys have other things on the agenda, so I don't want to take up a ton of time. I mostly wanted to just get here, make you all aware of it. But if there are other things that you want to provide, you're welcome to email me input that I can kind of pass along and we can kind of synthesize, Andrew, I'm volunteering, but Andrew will kind of synthesize that input we get as we move forward in those next steps as well. So does that help speak to your question?
It does. I mean, that was one thing I was noticing as we're listening to Andrew is, and I've said this before, land use and transportation are two sides of the same coin. And,
yep.
And as great as we work on development, if we're not looking at the street design, we can make the most beautiful building in the world, but if it's right next to a high-speed, high-traffic thing, no one's going to walk to it. So, Hirsch?
I only have one comment, and I have had opportunity as a neighborhood association to do comments. Kaiser is sidewalk poor. And walkability in our more newer neighborhoods, there's sidewalks, older areas, northwest, southeast, central. We just don't have sidewalks, and some of them even involve schools. I know in the last few years, just working around Cummings Elementary, we've done a lot of work, but there's still, you can't get there from here kind of sidewalk systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
David?
Yeah, a couple of things. And I think you mentioned it, though. A lot of this has to do with the new development we're going to make. And since we're, not a lot of that going to happen. I mean, you're not going to put a lot of new shopping centers somewhere between here and Wheatland Road. Well, I mean, you do actually have a lot of property there, but I say to the south, there isn't any place to do it. It seems to me, I've been here the last 25 years, that in the past, we've been very pro, let's get people out of Kaiser and get them to where they want to go. So we've got speed limits, we've widened, eliminated some streets to really get the traffic flowing on River Road, Wheatland, Lock Haven, Chemawa. That whole concept is contrary to this whole thing, in a way. It's that if we've always concentrated on making sure people can go 35 up Lock Haven, then anyway, there's a problem with that. The other comment I wanted to make is that regarding zoning, I've lived in or stayed for like a month or so in different walkability towns, Brooklyn, Munich, Berlin. If you walk down the neighborhood street like down Park Meadow, if you were in Munich, you'd have come across 2 stores, 3 taverns, and a hat shop or something, you never know. But people set these things up in their little teeny things where they're zoned, would have been zoned residential, but now somebody's opened it up and there's something to walk to. If, other than just going for a walk, there's no reason to walk down Park Meadow unless you're going to school. And there's no reason to walk down Wheatland Road unless you're going in downtown or to church, I guess. So I was just wondering, if do we look at zoning that way, where maybe we're going to allow more, quote, commercial development in the residential areas that would make it worth walking to? I don't have any plans.
Well, I mean, I'll speak briefly to it. There's definitely been a move in the planning realm, with a concept of more neighborhood commercial nodes and those kind of nodal development. In Kaiser, obviously we have a pretty developed and built environment. There are some elements that we've done in other planning efforts to kind of look at kind of centering some of those things, but they've been more around the commercial cores. That's something that would be outside of the scope of this specific project, would be zoning changes, but that's something the city could clearly consider. Now, the challenge is since we are so built out, you're talking about rezoning people's homes. So that's something that historically, in my time being here, the city has not been, when I say the city, the collective governance structure of the city, policy setters as well as policy implementers. We've not taken a real aggressive approach to tell people what they need to do with their property or to change it. We've kind of allowed the property owners and the citizens to drive that conversation a little bit more. But that is definitely, you're right, David, that's something that around the country, or around the state of Oregon and different communities, I think that if we were planning for a large, undeveloped or very underutilized area, that would definitely be something that would get some talk at the public realm as, hey, does it make sense to create some kind of residential commercial interest, small grocery store, things like that. But that is kind of out of the scope of what this specific project is that we have funding for. So.
And one other thing regarding, and Hirsch mentioned it, and I've been on the city's budget committee a couple times. I really would have under the impression that the city council, the government of Kaiser is not interested in doing sidewalks. They've had opportunities again and again and again to put in 3 blocks of sidewalks, 4 blocks here and there, and have always turned it down or eliminated it from the budget. A project that may only cost, and it sounds like a lot to some of us, say $500,000 or $600,000, or if you had $300,000, you could have put the last 25 years, you could have had 50 blocks put in. Maybe, if we pick the ones with the least impact, otherwise stay away from Verda, but where we're not have to digging up sewers and moving electricity, you could have put a whole slew of blocks in, and every time it was brought up, it's been turned down. So, I don't know. It's a hindrance to everything you're talking about here when they don't put it in the budget this year.
I'm gonna let Matt speak.
Sorry, Blake.
Oh, that's fine, Brenda.
Shane, I find this really exciting. I really like the potential where this is going, where you have maybe a little bit more condensed population with easy access to food, places to sit, places to meet with your friends, in parks. So I think there's a lot of potential, and I think Kaiser's already moving that way as a public with our little food booths, and we already have walkable coffee places like the Rock. No, it's the Rock. The one on Black Rock. You can walk up to it. You can ride your bike right up to the window, and the cars can't get to that window. So I'm really looking forward to for what your ideas come out of this, to increase that so that it's actually. I mean, right now I already walk to Copper Creek to get dinner and back, and I walk to Black Rock to get coffee. So I think Kaiser can do more of this, and I think that's exciting.
Appreciate, and actually, I was just gonna say, sorry, was it okay? One thing Andrew didn't mention, which was totally fine, I didn't expect him to, but one thing I will say is that I was really excited because I asked Andrew when they kind of initially got through our audit, I said, okay, I mean, it's been a long time since I was in school, but what kind of grade would you give us? And he said, I think that with the way your code is structured, you guys probably get a B to B plus, which I was encouraged by, because you're right, Brenda, we have been making some moves toward and really being driven, these rules came out of the climate-friendly equitable communities, really focused on greenhouse gas reduction strategies. We were making moves with changes to our development code were really driven by community convenience, being able to get to places on bikes or pushing a stroller, things like that, that maybe weren't for the same reasons that are now kind of maybe being mandated on us, but we already were heading in that direction in certain areas. So this is really a piece of how much more do we need to turn our dial to be compliant and still be achieving the things that our community wants us to achieve. So I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Before David, I'd say turn the dial to 11. David?
Well, just some of the focus strikes me as looking at maybe walkable nodes. The other piece, which certainly with the interconnected roadway and different things is a part of it, is just simply the connecting of those nodes to the broader community. So to me, it's an opportunity to look at, whether we have multi-use paths or, what is it that enables people living in those areas to also get to the broader community in a way that's enjoyable.
Yeah. So, Shane, you were mentioning, these tend to be forward-looking documents. I know Kaiser Station is not fully built out, and we're still looking. Can we incorporate, because I don't think I'm speaking out of line to say that within Kaiser Station, it's not very convenient to walk from, unless it's one block of building, you're not going to be walking. Can we affect that with this or something like this?
Well, I mean, realistically, so with this project, when we kind of get through the stage of adopting code provisions and code changes, I guess the answer would be possibly, in some ways, and in the areas that are maybe not developed yet, like Area C, where there's still a lot of houses that haven't been assembled and redeveloped. Some of that will depend on timing. I mean, one thing in the state of Oregon, there's a thing they kind of call the goalpost rule, where if you own a property and you make an application, the rules that are the rules at that time are the rules that we get to hold you to. Like, we can't change the game in the middle of the game, right? We can't change the rules in the middle of the game. So I think it will depend on how many changes that are made when we go to the adoption phase and how that exactly looks. And I think the one thing I would just say is that, I know Chair DeBlasi, I know you and I have talked about this a lot over the years. You were on our planning commission for several years. I know you have a mind of these planning things. And I think the one thing that I always kind of tell folks is that, you have a code that it's structured to a certain set of minimal standards, and you're going to have some developers that are going to design to the minimal standard. Others are going to design to a greater than standard because that's what they want. Others are going to try to design to not even the minimum standard, and then I have to fight with them to make sure they meet our minimum standard, right? So I think that's one thing that's a little bit difficult is for site-to-site development. Sometimes with these rules, there will be elements that are being implemented, but they're not as great as maybe we would desire. So it feels like maybe there's no changing that's happening. But it is, I do believe that these changes what we will see ultimately is kind of an incremental shift that's going to really come with that redevelopment realm. As people redevelop, we'll move toward that. Ultimately, to get at the larger global picture of lacking of sidewalks in certain areas. We all know there's an issue with River Road and the bike the lack of bike facilities in the south part of it. You know, those are gonna have to be larger projects that are gonna be really city-driven. These are gonna be standards that are gonna be bore by individual developers of individual lots. So, just for what it's worth.
So one final question, I guess, you know, we talked about, there's the development and code, and then there's the engineering of, is Public Works, have they been involved in these conversations as well with you and Andrew?
So with these, we're not having, I mean, there's nothing in the actual street standards piece. I think that, you know, these are gonna be more about building massing and, you know, building locations, things like that. I mean, yes, Bill Orr and I have had conversations, but what the plan is, or what is kind of what would make sense, is that that TSP updating of those rules are going to be what that connection point really is to put from the TSP into the engineering standards and the development code. They all kind of get, well, I don't know what the right word is, but
Synchronized?
thank you. Yes, that is the right word. It's the exact right word. That's kind of where that synchronicity will live with that process. So if that's helpful.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions? No? Well, I want to thank Andrew for joining us. I was actually going to bring this thing up, and then I saw that it was already on the queue to talk about, so someone was reading my mind. But thank you, and thank you for all the work, and as well as to Shane and any other city staff that I'm sure has been diligently working with you.
All right. Well, thank you
All right,
guys
thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next item. That would be, oh, that's, you want to wait for the noise?
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna leave. And I'm gonna go get food because you just gave me a great idea for dinner tonight. So thank you.
Okay. Great, so safety concerns on Verda Lane, the neighborhood traffic management application submitted by Tammy Kunz. Okay, and while we're talking about that, we could have, you know, Matt, you mentioned something about that, so while we're waiting for Tammy, if you wanted to.
She stepped out.
Yeah.
Well, I met with Public Works Director Bill.
Is your mic on?
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Is this damn thing on? Yeah, okay, good. So I met with Bill, and he suggested a second traffic survey, and with Officer Powell's help, we did that. The interesting thing to me, and I was talking to him the other day about this, was the total cars per week, you can see on there, is 8208. And you divide that by 7, you get over 1,100 cars a day. And that's well above one of the
Criteria.
yeah, arterial requirements for a change. Now, but to his point, to Officer Powell's point, you know, the average speed is 27.46, as you can see, and 31 miles per hour. The posted limit there is 25. So people are going 6 miles over, you know, that may not seem very fast, but if you're on a bicycle or a pedestrian, you know, I don't know what the statistics are, but it's catastrophic if you're hit at 30 miles an hour. So, however, there is a letter here. Oh, there she's back. I'll let her talk about it. So, Tammy, if you want to, I want to thank Officer Powell's help for your help too.
Okay, Tammy from Greater Northeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association. Have you all had a chance to look at the letter?
Originally, yes, but yeah.
Okay. I've put together some other information as well. This has been an ongoing problem since '23. We had Naomi Rodriguez come in and share in '23 and in '24. We had Bill White in '23 come in and share, and some other people, and I will make sure I give you a copy of this. But most recently, we had a 17-year-old hit by a car, distracted driving, right at the crosswalk at Kennedy on Kaiser Road in Noreen. Minor injuries, she's fine, but something's gotta be done. If it was an elementary kid, they would not have been that lucky because they are much shorter. I have shared off and on over the years. It's been on the list. I do not see it on your list currently. I don't know. I've got 25 parents that are concerned for their kids' safety going to and from school. We do have a crossing guard at that stop. It just so happened that she had already left because elementary starts before the middle school. And I don't know. I don't know what we can do, but we need to do something. And I'll submit this to Melissa for extra information that we've gathered over the last week or so.
Well, I think, there's a couple thoughts I have is, one, we've talked about residential street speed limits to begin with, right? Talked about lack of crossing guards in certain locations. I've often thought and voiced that the school speed limit zone, it's set at quarter mile. Is it? Not even? It's not even a quarter mile.
I don't even think it's a quarter of a
The
mile.
school
The
speed limit
flashing
zone.
lights or the-
Yeah. It's
It's farther than that.
Well, if you take a look at, Whitaker on Lock Haven, it's doesn't even go all the way to McLeod and it doesn't go all the way to Verda. So it's a very restricted zone. So unless there's a law that prohibits us from expanding those school speed limit zones, that's something I would like to push for. But we also run into issues with vehicle size, like you say, an elementary school kid is going to be much more prone to injury or death being hit by a normal size vehicle. And then you've got, a lot of the trucks and SUVs today will come up to the top of my car, their hoods. So
Yeah.
anybody's going to get
Which we
hit.
almost had happen yesterday. The crossing guard called me and left me a panicked message. He said, I had a kid almost hit by a car. I was helping somebody cross, a car did not slow down and almost ran us both over.
Yeah.
And she's a crossing guard for our school district.
Okay, I'm getting, what issue are we talking about? We're talking about Verda from Lock Haven to.
We're talking
to the
about
circle,
both.
Or are we talking about the whole region regarding kids walking to school?
For
Or
me,
just-
it's both because
just
I had a
everybody
student
speeding?
hit by a car
On his way to school, or,
on their way to school.
okay.
And that was after I submitted the NTSP.
Okay, and that was up on Kaiser Road.
And that was on Kaiser Road. But this problem has been an ongoing thing. Matt submitted a proposal last month for an NTSP. We have new results for the speed study.
That was on Verda. Is Verda even in a school zone? No. I didn't think so. So, what I'm trying to get at is that seems to be two separate issues.
It is.
I'm sure there's some kids walk to school on Verda, either going to the
Yeah,
middle
because we
school
have
or
Verda
back.
Crossing, so they have been using May and Dixon is where we have been helping them cross if they don't use Dearborn, which is my preferred choice because right now we have staff from the school there because we don't always have a crossing guard.
Do they even have crossing guard? Yeah, they do for the middle school, right? Okay. So are we still concerned about the speed on Verda?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the traffic. And yesterday I got to witness somebody driving the opposite direction next to the roundabout while a car was coming.
Oh, boy.
Well,
That was insane.
true, but
And I was in a crosswalk.
yeah.
So Verda, though, would not be considered a residential street, though, right? So it wouldn't be under, is it?
It should
is? Oh,
be.
fine.
It's 25. It's a
Oh, well, okay.
residential speed limit.
I'm thinking
The
of
north
I'm
part.
thinking, the south part of Verda.
Yeah, that part
South
is probably
towards-
not.
So from the
Parkway?
circle to you, well, yeah, that
Oh,
whole
right.
stretch is
That's different.
arterial, right?
That's not what we're looking at.
Right, but again, you've got cars coming into this zone, 25 zone, coming in at 35, they slow down for the circle, but then they
Dearborn and the circle.
speed up as they, because, everyone gets into that road torpor or sleep, whatever. Yes.
My question on these injury accidents, are these reportable? Did you get information on the accident, or is this just?
The one specific
Yeah.
issue was, yes, it was, because it's a pedestrian.
Right.
She ended up with some bumps and bruises. It is a reportable crash. However, the distracted is, most people would think it was a cell phone. She just wasn't paying attention.
Right.
And I don't know, there's really no fix to that. She
Right.
was coming down, she was traveling west, the driver was traveling west on Kaiser Road to take a left-hand turn onto Noren, to where the left A-pillar is blocking the pedestrian as the pedestrian's coming at her. It was extremely low speed, bumped her, knocked her onto the ground.
So
How do you fix that?
engineering, if there's anything that we're talking about, it's not engineering, changing speed, signs, where it's more of a educational thing for drivers, kids, schools.
Statistically, it was not a speed issue and it was not an engineering issue.
Okay.
It was a driver's issue.
Well, I would push back on the engineering thing, only because when a street makes you uncomfortable as you're driving on it, you tend to pay more attention, right? You're more hyper-focused on the condition, and if a street is signaling to you in all these different ways, be focused, drivers tend to be more focused. That's why, when a street is wider and less distraction, people can be more relaxed and less focused.
But Kaiser Road even has kind of a speed bump on it.
Yeah, but that's so,
That's my pet road anyway, but, I mean, that's a hard one to even see anybody doing over 25 on Kaiser Road. So granted, the accidents happen, but it just sounds like you mentioned, you can't stop. I don't know what you're gonna do about drivers who are changing their radio station or on their phone or who knows what, and just run into somebody that's clearly visible. The car's only doing 15 miles an hour. I don't know what we can do about that, if anything.
David?
I'm very pleased to hear that it was documented, though. I know Hirsch and I both have, probably Hirsch more actively than I, but explored the possibility of funding through safe routes to schools and things. And one of the criteria they look at strongly is how many accidents have happened in the vicinity that you're, so it's really important to keep records and have that in the database, because it does help. And certainly there would be engineering changes and stuff that could make it safer, but,
Yeah, and I did submit some of that information as well for the Safer Roads grant
Safe routes to
information. So I did add that as well because I talked to Beth.
Brenda?
So I think this is the first time I've dealt with, a neighborhood traffic management program application. So as a committee, if my understanding is right, Tammy Coons has filled out an application. What are we supposed to do as a committee with this application? Because, yeah, that's my question.
So, yeah, Hirsch?
If it's the one I'm looking at, and the issues, residents have to cross for collecting mail, using buses and public transportation. This is almost, some of it is outside of our jurisdiction. Am I right, reading it right or wrong, or, because mail collection is U.S. Postal Service, school bus and public transportation, or is the school district transportation, and transit. And the lighting district is completely different too. We really can't move the mail. We really can't change the buses without going, the school district transportation. But if I'm reading that wrong, or my interpretation, let me know.
Well, I would say, like, yeah, we're not gonna move where the mail is collected, but if we can make it where people, again, are hyper-focused in the vicinity of where people are crossing for mail, then they're more likely to be aware of someone who's gonna be crossing.
We're talking about Verda now, correct?
Yeah,
From Lock Haven to the traffic circle. We already, first off, everything south of Dearborn is that's all being changed, so there's really
Yes.
nothing we're gonna
Correct.
say or do about that. So we're talking about from the traffic circle regarding streets, the traffic circle to Lock Haven. And the basic issues, a lot of people think traffic's too heavy and too fast. And they would like it slowed down or stopped.
slow down on that street,
We
yeah.
do have a traffic study.
In the traffic study, how would you interpret that, officer? On Verda?
So I'll go back to, let's look at the first one, which was done a year ago, February 24.
Yeah.
We had, I believe it was Matt that brought the complaint initially to the police department. I did some enforcement in there, some selected enforcement, found some activity, then did the survey, and showed that it was the average speed, 50% of all cars are at 26.5 miles an hour. And then, at that point, back in January, I became from a 3-person traffic unit to a 1-person traffic unit. My time on the road, and in one particular area, it got extremely limited. I'll be honest, I mean, I haven't worked that area in hardly a year. And it came back up again recently. And I did another survey just to update it. The volume has picked up, but the average speed has not. Now, with the average volume, when you have, with more volume, the average, yes, you have a few, in quantity, you have more cars, but the actual speed itself has not increased. And it's something, yes, it met the requirement of the over 8,000 cars a day. But it also, part of that criteria is it has to be over, the 50% has to be over 30 miles an hour, which we're underneath. So this is something I believe, and this is I've been working, Matt saw me there yesterday. Most of this traffic on Verda, on that particular road, are the same drivers. They drive this area regularly. They live in the neighborhood or travel that way to Lock Haven. It's something that I think can be enforceable and correctable that way with some more targeted enforcement. Because I haven't been there for a year, I think the drivers have been complacent. There's no intersections per se other than Calmia. And it's a wide road. It looks like you can go fast. And I think it's something that as you enforce and show presence, it will solve this problem, is my take.
But we haven't increased our highway patrol, whatever. Street, you're still only 1 person.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
But now what this has done is now that's what the purpose of the surveys are. Because I can't be everywhere at once. The surveys will then tell me, hey, this street does need some attention. And that's where I would agree. That's where I feel. And I've worked up there the last couple of weeks of periodically days at a time.
And this is more of a question because I don't have an answer. How do we get the information to all the drivers in that part of Kaiser to slow, what do we tell them or do to them or something to get them to slow down? I mean, if we went door to door, you and I and somebody else and just say, hey, we'd like to just ask you to slow down because we saw, you know, that you drive here. And then went to from house, I mean, we can't do that, of course, but I'm saying somehow or other, how do you get, besides sending them, you don't send them emails because people don't read them. They don't watch TV anymore, so.
So to speak on that, there's not really a hard study because it's all been self-reported, but there's somewhere between 5 and 10% of all drivers will be oblivious to speed laws regardless of the consequences. That's just human nature. So to get rid of everybody, it's not possible. I mean,
No,
that's.
I know, but I'd like to know that we talked, if you were able to talk to everybody and tell them to slow down, not that it's gonna work. I'm saying you could say, well, at least you made that effort.
So within radar and speed enforcement that I instruct is literally more presence, and there is actually a study up there for every 1% increase in citations, the level of crashes decreased a quarter of a percent. So 1% up goes down a 1/4%.
Did you have something, Mark? Okay, I don't know who went first here. Okay.
Officer Powell, just as I looked at the speed studies, I was just curious, on Alder Drive, the 2 speed studies were done both in September, one pre-radar boards, the other post. Two things struck me about that. One was, the post one has 50% more drivers it's a significant 5,000 car increase for the week. It was one before school opened and one after, or was there some reason for that? And then the second thing was I was quite surprised when you look at the changes in the average speeds, maybe by 3 miles per hour and the 50% thing, but it was a 50% reduction in the total number of speeding vehicles, which, you know, for a 3 mile an hour change, I thought, whoa, that's pretty significant, but I'd be curious.
So, to be honest, and when I started doing these speed surveys, there's different settings that I was never trained. Nobody really knew how to properly set this up, and I'm learning as I go. Because if you go clear back to even the Verta one in 2024, the volume was really low, which even to me seemed a little bit low, and it was, I don't have the numbers directly in front, but it was almost 3 times as many one direction as there was the other, and it didn't make sense. So I think I've got some of the settings because how long a vehicle has to be tracked to be accurately counted, and this time this survey came in with about 8,000 cars or whatever or 4,000 cars in each direction, which would make more sense. So I attribute some of that to the 24, the low volume is that issue. But I'll bet the actual speed or actual number of cars is in that 15,000 cars range. And the 50% reduction, that's in the cars that were over that 36 miles an hour. So it's
A small number of cars.
yes, but of the 36, which is where we want to, those are our target vehicles. We had 50% less of those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for those of you who don't know, or the audience out there, in the NTSB, there are 2 things that move this forward. One is the volume daily vehicle count is more than 800 vehicles per day, and it clearly is that on Verta. It's almost 1,200 vehicles a day. And the other part that Officer Powell was talking about, the speed is 50 percentile speed of the 50 percentile speed, 5 or more miles per hour above the posted speed, and it is not. It is at 26.5 miles an hour. I would move to this committee that this stay on the agenda. It needs further review because, look, we have almost 1,200 cars a day going down that street.
Yeah.
And I get it that there is, they're not the 50 percentile is going 26.5 miles per hour, but the 85th percentile is doing 31. And so I realize that we built this for a reason, but I also think due consideration by the committee and further review, so.
So I wanted to ask, Tammy, has this been submitted to the city directly yet, or is it, okay, so it has been submitted to the city. And that's how this study came out, the February 25 speed study?
So the way it was, Matt submitted it, and then not too shortly after that, Tammy submitted the same thing. So that data was already being got by Officer Powell, and we just combined them because it's the same thing. So same area, same distance, Verda from Lock Haven to the roundabout.
So what's the next step?
I think we put it on our list, as a project list, to be tracking it. You know, again, with the traffic management plan, it is a living document. We can amend it as we feel the need. I think, you know, the 5 mile over the speed limit for 50th percentile may be too generous. And I even been thinking how long of a street you go before there are either intersections or some other thing that could be a slowing factor to cars. Maybe, you know, we're talking about, we were talking about the length of streets being 500 feet in a residential area. Maybe that's the distance before there's some speed mitigating measure that would be put into place. And we still have the issue of the student who was hit, and it's different, absolutely different, but no less important. And I don't know, perhaps we could have a visit to the area. I know we're all familiar with it, but if we're there talking, some of us, with Officer Powell or whomever you can put in your place, maybe there'll be some ideas that pop up while we're out there.
Officer Powell, are you going to make an effort to, what do you call, police that area? More than you have in the past?
Which areas?
Verda.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was there yesterday.
Okay.
I mean, I was there the week before.
So that in effect is something that's going to happen again?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's-
it's back on my radar, we'll call it that.
There you go. That is
Okay.
the step.
Matt?
So for the benefit of the public and other people that are here, the question was asked, what is the next step? So basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, it reads in here, if thresholds are not met, further study could be recommended. This may include implementing temporary low-cost measures to gauge the effect of speed calming measures. Finding and assessments will be presented. So, and then you or somebody makes a recommendation to the city council. So is that correct? Are those the next steps?
Yeah.
I
City council?
think, so that's what I was gonna ask. We can, and I'm gonna turn to Mr. Brown for clarification on this, but we do now have the ability to change speed limits in the residential. So, I mean, that might be something to consider recommending. I mean, if it's 25, but that goes to, I mean, in my mind, that goes to Mr. Dempster's comment about how do we communicate with the people in the drivers in that area? I mean, whether it happens or not, the fact that if it's a conversation starter and it's been a recommendation from this committee to consider that might be a pretty good conversation starter with people in the neighborhood. I mean, I can't speak what the council would do, but it might be a good.
Sure. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
No,
I just
no,
clarifying the steps.
I actually sent the email to Adam earlier in the meeting and said, hey, can't we do this now? Like, there was a law that said we can do it. So whether that's, I think I saw Ms. Chair de Blasi is doing the report to council. I don't know if you guys want to consider making that recommendation to council. Wink, wink. We can do that now and consider that, and then we have the ability, right, Mr. Brown, to direct staff to do more research, to do whatever that might be. So I'm just putting that out there for consideration. No, I mean, I literally sent that email.
Right.
At
yeah, no, I think that's
6:25,
good.
I sent that email to Adam saying, hey, can't we still do this? So, we're on the same wavelength. So,
And I don't want to be a wet blanket because I want that. But didn't Bill and our contract engineer say that we still have to go through ODOT, right? We still have to write something to ODOT and they have to approve it?
Well,
On
the
a
city council
residential?
couldn't figure that out.
Mike?
Mr. Philbrick asked me at the last meeting to do a little research on that, and in 2024, the speed zone did change, allowing jurisdictions that apply for the ability to change their speed limits will have to designate an engineer to oversee that process. So we are able to do it. It says smaller cities contract with an engineer. Those engineers will need to be certified through the state. So we need to get a certified engineer, and I think as Mike was just saying, then they will gather that information, that data and whatever they have, and then submit that to ODOT, and then ODOT still puts their stamp of approval on that. So I'll say there's some hoops to go through. Right now, we don't have a certified engineer. We have a certified engineer, but not for this specifically, and I don't know what that takes to be certified. I didn't research that.
I'd like it in all our residential areas. Yeah. My only question is the steps. That's what Mike and I were told. But now my question is, since we don't have an engineer and I'm looking at it's a budget item, right? Because we have to buy one.
Well, okay to speak, Chair?
Oh, yeah, please, yeah.
Yes, it would come out of the street fund, so it's not necessarily a general fund item, but, and Mike, you're saying that our AKS is not a transportation engineer for ODOT or?
Well,
certified?
and just talking to Scott Manser, who did that presentation, I'm not sure that there's a special certification through the state that engineer needs to hold to then make that recommendation and turn that data in. That I don't know. That's what I got from Scott from the presentation, and that's what I got from a research I did.
But that's not an insurmountable barrier.
that's my,
Next question is, we're starting the budget process right now. Would it behoove us to make that recommendation to the council and to the budget committee?
Yes, particularly between this month and next would be ideal.
Okay, we're able to do that tonight?
Or
Or do we have to have that on the,
Well, David's going to city council.
Right.
I guess.
next month is me?
Oh, next month's you,
Yeah.
okay.
So, but I would have to come with the motion, or with an approved motion. Can we, right?
Can I make the motion?
Sure.
I move that we recommend to the city council that an engineer be hired to evaluate the way we need to change the residential streets in Kaiser to 20 miles an hour.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a
Question,
discussion?
you said all residential streets? That's what it sounds like you said.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion to hire an engineer, a certified engineer, to do the study, to have all residential, recommend hiring, to do the study, to evaluate turning all residential streets within Kaiser to 20 miles an hour. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or nay or abstaining? Okay, motion passes. So thank you.
Okay, that you want, just my intent, I just want to make clear I got the intent right. We really don't, I don't know if you really expect them to say, okay, every residential street in Kaiser is going to be 25, as opposed to saying, yeah, some of them can be reduced to 25.
Well, we'll see what the engineers say.
Well, I mean, I want to make sure that somewhere in the paperwork is we want more than a yes or no from the engineer.
Well, yeah.
So you're
No,
saying,
I mean, that's not
right.
automatic. I know some engineers, but you ask them and they just say,
Well,
well,
that's
no, you
how,
can't.
isn't, well, I mean, the council could
Clarify
that,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, this is a perfect starting point for conversation in terms of recommendation to the council to start the conversation and move that forward.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. C is the climate friendly and equitable communities walkable design standards. I think that was what I brought up. And it was pretty much focusing on
That's what he just
what
did.
we just saw. So I will say we could check that box on the list. Next is green paint lines, list of locations. I'd started a spreadsheet. You know, I know people are gonna look at it and like, you can't do it there. That's crazy. But I just tried to like put it all on paper, so to speak.
I wasn't sure what you meant. Do you mean, instead of white lines, we're gonna have green lines, or do you mean paint the whole bike lane green?
Well, for me, it's a combination of, you have some bike lanes that are going to have, like, when there's an intersection with say a turn lane, you'll have the green paint that highlights to the driver that there's a bike lane there. I also added bike boxes because I figured I'm making a spreadsheet, I can put whatever I want.
Those aren't paint, green lines, those are green.
Right, so, well, there are a lot of lines together, they just bleed into each other. So, that's my spreadsheet, and I'm sticking to it. No, so, I please add or comment, or however you want to ignore it, I suppose, if you want. But that's, I don't know, it doesn't, was it printed out for everyone to see, or? I didn't.
It's in the packet.
Yes.
Is it in the packet?
Oh, there it
Okay,
is.
it is in the
Okay,
packet.
that one.
There we go, okay. So and what I did was I put, whether it was on the north side or south side of the street, whether I thought they could do both. I gave a starting point, end point, the length, and I tried to put some notes in there too, as to what I was thinking. But, I don't know if we can have it where it's a shareable, editable, or commentable document for all of us.
So I see us going for, what I see here is that we're gonna come up with some group of intersections. We'd like to have some green paint put on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to suggest that to the city council?
Well,
What?
yeah, Hirsch.
I went to city council late last year, and because the committee had made a recommendation for more engineering changes for especially Lock Haven and River Road and Chamawa West Side, at River Road. And, city council said, got recommendations from staff, and the engineering that would be required was quite significant as far as the cost. So city council said no for that. But the simple green paint with the same dimensions that are already there, Bill said, yes, they could work that in. So right now, as far as areas that I think that we could get a go for within the next while is Lock Haven and River Road, both sides, and Chamawa on the west side only, because the east side is would require more engineering. Am I correct?
Well, Hirsch, I got a quote from Hicks to see the cost for that, and there's 7 locations. It was $29,000. We don't have money in the budget to do this year, this fiscal year, and we're working on next fiscal year's budget. I just wanted to clarify, as far as the green paint, it's more of a procedure than just putting down green paint. We don't add that to the Marion County, who does our striping. That just changes the color and, does the white skip line and then comes over and does the green. So there is more to it.
Do we have a list of the 7 locations anywhere?
Yeah, they're part
I
of
don't
what
need it
Mr.
to- Huh?
They're part of my list,
what
but-
Mike put together.
Well, I
They're in the
know
hash
his
marks.
Okay,
Mine was not like saying, okay, these were already part of the list. I think we had in our other list, right?
So we're kind of speaking two things. I just want to speak on what Hirsch was talking about, because that specifically was the hash marks that we had kind of narrowed down. The broader picture was the engineer study, and we narrowed that down to, hey, here's spots right here, is this doable? So we got the quote, and then it was like, oh, 30 grand, it's not doable right now. And again, working on budget coming up. I don't know where that fits in or how that's going to fit in, I'll say.
So we could do 7 this year, 7 next, I mean, bring it up again
Well,
next year. do it
assuming
again.
the budget's
If
available, yeah.
budget-
It needs, yeah,
In terms, a head start so you can budget.
But
If we wanted to.
Bill's going to want direction from council
Yeah.
to make this happen, I will say.
yeah.
Oh, we don't really do anything, we just send everything to you.
Well, don't say that in public. I would just say that, my list is really just, it's like, kind of like our other project list. It's just a list that we can keep track of and then delete things as we do it. So I'm not saying we're gonna take my list and say, here, council, we want all of this done.
No, we got 7.
No, and I understand that. I just wanted to speak on, there's, something that's out there right now for a few dollars.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's, yeah.
And I just want, everyone to know
Board
where.
on here? I can't-
Yeah.
Okay.
But, so should we, talking about asking for money?
Well, now, wait a minute, where are we, Mike, with the 7? Is that going to be in the budget for next year?
Currently, no. We're working on it, and as far as I know, it's not.
So it's a no-go.
It was brought before council, and that wasn't one of the things I was thinking. It was more so, see if we have the money this year, and if we do, then we'll go from there.
So
And
if
I know we don't
wanted
this
it
year.
Budgeted for next year, what should, maybe I shouldn't be asking you.
Well,
What
I'd
should we do?
probably have to go make a motion and go back before council.
Yeah.
And the budget committee.
Or-
Let's
yeah.
hear
I think as a committee, if you wanted to, my suggestion would be, as the committee if this is something that you want to put forward for budget consideration, I would, and I'm gonna look at the person who knows this process better probably than I do, but I would recommend that you make a motion to build out a budget request from the Traffic Safety Head Committee. And then, because you can turn in a budget request to be considered, and then it's in the packet, and it goes through the entire budget process, right? And the budget committee gets it, and and then ultimately it comes to council. But that's what I would do, is vote to put a budget proposal together, and then I would work on that budget proposal, and then have the committee approve the final budget, like the draft request, that then goes to consideration and is submitted to Tim and the finance department
Right, 'cause all
for
this-
inclusion.
This is really Public Works project.
You can, the committee can still put a budgetary request forward. And whether or not the budget, and it can be considered and built in, or,
Mike, does that sound
is that right,
fair to
Adam?
you, Mike?
Yeah, Adam said yes. Adam said that can be done that way.
Well, I know it can be done. I didn't want to feel like we were going over the head of
I mean,
Public Works.
you can put it forward to Bill, and Bill can choose to put it in. If it doesn't
I
get put in, you can put it you can go the other route.
No, I think that's a good route, as Counselor Starr
Okay.
said. I know budgetary coming up, we have some big projects and
Yep.
money allocated, and I'm hearing a lot of, I would like to do that, but
Yeah.
money's going here, so that's just, have to be careful what we do and go from there.
Did you have a list of the 7 intersections?
We've talked about the 7 intersections,
Okay,
but I don't
Mike,
have the
you
list in front of
have
me.
a list of the 7 intersections and the cost?
Well, it's two,
Because he doesn't have.
it's two intersections, Lock Haven and River Road.
I thought there were 7. What did I-
Well, he said 7, but
It's
we've
total of
talked about multiple, and then I think we were trying to whittle it down to.
So you're talking about the 7 two basic intersections, Mike, is what you're talking about, for 30,000?
Correct, 7 sites in those 2 intersections,
Okay,
and it's
two
just the hash marks that we're talking about as you approach the signals.
Okay.
So yes, sir.
I would think that I'd like to go through, focus on the 3 that we've already talked about.
What 3?
It would be Lock Haven, both east and west at River Road.
That's 7 jobs.
Yeah, technically 7 jobs, isn't it? And
Yeah,
then
well, east and west, and then also,
on the
south.
west side,
On the north side, or excuse me, on the
west side.
east side by Waremart. There's a section right there.
Right,
So,
yeah,
Yep.
east and west side of Lock Haven at River Road, and then on the west side at Chamawa Road and River Road.
Okay, that's just those 2 intersections, basically. And do you have that printed out somewhere?
We have it. Yeah. I know we've talked.
Yes, yeah, we have it
Yeah.
listed.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Mike?
Yeah.
And maybe you don't, can't answer this right now, but is there an efficiency to having 2 separate intersections, or would it be just more efficient just to do 1 intersection?
I'd put them together. They're out there and they're doing the work and mixing it and it'll probably be night work, or I'm sure it'll be night work, so, yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't.
Hirsch?
I move that we develop a proposal for
Nope.
the budget committee
Oh, okay, well, I thought we just make the proposal to the budget committee.
well, I think we need to be in agreement with a motion before we move ahead, that we include these street areas as a budget proposal using Mike's figures. Because what, you said 29,000 or whatever?
Something,
Yeah, to the budget committee.
And then what?
Propose that be included in the Public Works project list?
No, if we go right to the budget committee, we don't go to Public Works.
No, I'm not going to, we're going to the
Funding.
budget committee, but it is the Public Works budget that we're dealing with.
Under contractual services.
Right.
So, yeah, and you just want to earmark 29,500 or and get an updated quote and call it 31, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's the bicycle painted lines and
Yeah,
those 2
This,
intersections.
yeah,
You want
so,
to make the
So
motion
what's
again?
the motion though?
well, he's about to say it.
I proposed a motion that we as a committee approve the presentation to the budget committee of allocation of money by Public Works for the painting of these streets.
Okay, and once we pass, go ahead,
Yeah,
I need to explain this.
gonna-
Once we pass
Well,
this,
hold
what
on.
happens?
Let's
Let me
Brenda.
try.
Okay.
I move that this committee create a proposed budget that can come back to this committee so we can review it and approve it to give to the budget committee.
That's,
Second.
how do I?
So you're saying, figure out how much it's gonna cost
Yeah.
first before we
First, you
go.
build your,
Yeah,
somebody in the
she's right.
committee makes the proposal. Sorry, someone in the committee makes the proposal, brings it back here, we agree to it, and then we have a new proposal to send it to the budget committee.
In the budget
We
committee,
give it to Mike and he walks it to him.
well, we probably
That
will
way.
have to.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
correct.
Did anybody second that?
Yes,
Well,
I did.
okay. Okay, can I hear that one more time? Just so I make sure I'm not gonna say no, but I just wanna
Do you
hear.
want to read that back, Melissa, so I don't make it new again?
I do not have that perfectly.
Oh, okay. I move that someone from this committee create a proposed budget for painting the 7 intersections green to be to be brought back here for this committee to consider at a later date to then give to the budget committee. So first we have to have a proposal. So I'm moving that we create the proposal.
Can I make a
Painting intersection.
friendly amendment of just saying, instead of at a later date, at the next
That's great.
Next.
That's awesome.
meeting, yeah. Okay.
You know, I was making it up on the fly.
No,
Yeah, well,
you're fine. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Hearing none, the motion passes. Mike?
So I need to get an updated quote and get it to you all
Yeah.
to move forward, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, great. Moving along. Pilot pedestrian flag program.
That's Tammy.
Well, it's Tammy, but it's really, we're gonna have
All
Brenda lead
right,
it.
so, in your packet is the Kaiser Pedestrian Flag Program. That's the one that we as committee, came together and discussed in April of 2024. I want to go to the April notes, where if, I guess I'll read them. Brenda, I explained that the flags enhance visibility and get the driver's attention and is not guaranteed the vehicle will stop. And then we discussed that other cities use the flags. Mr. de Blasi commented that pedestrians would need to be careful not to block signs with the flags. Mr. Stankster asked if the city would be willing to take on the liability. Ms. Lamb stated there was no longer a city liability. This was no longer a liability. She hasn't found any city in the state to be responsible. Chair Salvador proposed that this go to the city council to allow pedestrians flagging, and the committee agreed, and Ms. Lamb to ask the city about this on the committee's behalf. Mr. Philbrook talked about the intersection of Verda and Lock Haven and said the city needs to do something about better traffic flow. There are no crosswalks, and he supports pedestrian flags. So the reason I read that is to say that this committee has already had the discussion on pedestrian flags. So Ms. Salvador and I did take it to Adam Brown and was given permission to do a pilot. The purpose of the pilot is to see if it works for our city. So pedestrian flags do not work for all cities. Some cities, they're just a waste. But either way, this particular this particular pilot has no finances for the city. The only reason we're doing this is so the city has control of where these get put for pedestrian safety. So on the pedestrian flag program pilot, it has requirements. It requires that Public Works approve the location, it requires that the speed limit be 30 miles or less. They cannot be at any intersection already controlled by a traffic crossing device. The holders can't block any signs, and the approval is needed to attach to a signpost or utility pole. So if they put their flags out, in order to put it on a city post or pole, they have to get permission. So with this already in place, I believe Rob would like to come up and give us, and I think this might be appropriate time, and then we can just continue on with the discussion as you guys would like to discuss.
Good evening, my name's Rob. I'm a member of the West Kaiser Neighborhood Association, and we were made aware of the pilot program, and we felt that we discussed it and we are in favor of actually trying at least, and then so we came up with a few options that we felt would be good spots to start this program, and settled on an area which is Shamawa at 15th. We think that would be a good spot to do it. We feel like, especially with the park, Kaiser Rapids, adding fields and sports courts, and there's probably going to be more pedestrian traffic. And people are coming from both sides of Shamawa, north and south, and especially if we're getting into, later in the day when the sun might be coming down, it might be a little bit more difficult, a little bit more distractions for drivers. So we feel like if we had a crossing there, the flags, that it might make people a little bit more visible and hopefully, reduce opportunity or odds of anything catastrophic occurring, so.
So on our program, it says that the pilot person is filling out the form that's on the back on your handout, and then brings it to us. And then we discuss if it meets the criteria, and then give approval for them to try it, is my understanding of this proposal that's here. It says, process, come to STP with application. We review it for completeness, and then we ask the city staff to approve the location. And then an email will get sent to Rob and the association that it's approved.
And I do have an application to submit, and I don't have copies for everybody, but I have a couple copies
I
if
think
needed, so.
probably give one to me and maybe one to Melissa.
What's the speed limit on Chamala right there?
I believe it's 30 at that spot.
Okay. So does that would be something, have we talked about turnaround? Like if he gives it to us tonight, do we have an expected turnaround as to when we deliver it to, council?
We didn't write that.
Okay.
It's a pilot program, we might need to add that.
No, it's still a work in progress.
Mine.
So, yes, Matt? And, I'm sorry, Adam?
It's okay. Chairman DeBoss and committee members, I did, I don't remember how much it was, but I think I gave them $300 to $500 for, to cover expenses for.
Oh, fabulous.
Thank you. Okay, so we have an application, and obviously it's filling in, well, where it says the crossing of which street will the flags be for? Doesn't,
15th and Chamala.
okay, so it does say 15. Okay, I see. So it says the intersection and the actual street that it's crossing. And, okay. Yes, Hirsch, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just trying to make sure that if it looks complete, then there would be something I would want to bring on the 3rd.
I might as well go on record. I'm not a big fan of this program, but I have acquiesced and gone with the committee. 15th does not have sidewalks on the other side.
It has it on, I'm trying to think of directions here. I think it has it on.
People walking from Northwest Kaiser down 15th, they're walking in the street, are they not?
On the
West
east side, I think there is,
There is, okay.
I believe.
On the
So
west.
you're thinking just that east side area?
Am I on the, did I get the wrong?
West side.
West side, sorry, west side.
I thought the sidewalk ends there. So the sidewalk goes down, ends there, and that's why we thought the flagging there would be nice.
It is an access area from Northwest Kaiser to the park, for sure.
Right.
I'm just worried about sidewalks and
Mr. Chair. Mr. Lawyer and I were talking about this yesterday, I believe, and we were leaning towards somewhere that had a crosswalk, but because the rules are no traffic calming devices except crosswalks, but we believe that would be the safest place to trial, but
What was our other place, Rob? Do you remember the other location?
No, not offhand. Sorry, I don't have my hearing devices in.
Sorry, I think it might have been Dearborn. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, it does. Dearborn and, I was looking at it last week. It's been a long weekend, sorry.
So maybe the association can chat with Adam and brainstorm a location.
Hirsch?
Since you're borderlining another neighborhood association, I'd like you to come to our meeting and talk about the program and maybe whether it can be a partnership. You guys do the paperwork, though.
Yeah.
Our next meeting is next month. Would that be, well, even if it gets approved, we still would like.
Sure.
Third Wednesday, 7 o'clock.
Adam, when you mentioned it has to, you no traffic calming devices other than crosswalks, you mean like an actual official zebra stripe crosswalk, or what?
Flashing lights.
no, not, the flashing lights would be a traffic calming device, but
Yeah.
just a
Signal.
painted crosswalk striped.
The closest one from that spot's, what, about 100 yards down towards the field?
Yep.
Without sidewalk though, right?
There is a sidewalk.
So, Adam, can I talk to you?
David?
I traveled Chemawa there quite a bit, going to Kaiser Rapids. My memory, and it's something as a driver I'm often quite aware of, is I think as a location for possibly trying the flags, I like it. The volume of traffic on Chemawa in that area is not huge, and there are a fair number of pedestrians, walking dogs and different things getting to the park. My memory is that the crosswalk that's fairly close to the park, I think, particularly on the north side, is also somewhat blocked with vegetation and things. And it's a spot where there's some ambiguity sometimes with pedestrians. Are they ready to cross or not? And which then, as a driver, causes some confusion. Anyway, I personally like the idea of trying a flag along there someplace. And I'm not sure whether it's 15th or the crosswalk closer to the park, but it seems like a good location.
Yep.
Thank you.
Brenda?
I agree with you. I mean, there's so many times I actually stop because someone looks like they're gonna cross and it's our law, and then they're like, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Adam, I don't think I wrote specifically that it had to be at a marked crosswalk. I thought it was just any Oregon crosswalk, which I thought was any corner. So did we want to add that to this application, that it needs to be painted crosswalks?
That's what Mr. Lawyer and I felt would be the place to start with it. Because, I mean, looking at that 15th on the map here, the sidewalks actually connect, go straight. They're not meant to go perpendicular or across Chemawa because there's no crosswalk there. So it'd be better to encourage the crosswalks and then make them as safe as possible.
So, should I not change the form, and this is just where we're starting first, or until we decide that all of them should be painted, or is it going forward, it should be all painted?
I believe going forward, we should start with the painted crosswalks.
So
So this one doesn't make it.
this one would have to be amended to a different street.
Well, they identified the crosswalk just about 100 yards up from 15th. That would work
Okay.
on Chemawa.
It kind of goes into the fields.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but it's, so should we
So
write
what
on here
intersection is
100
that?
yards down from 15th? Is it,
The closest one is Walsh Way Street.
so, how about we say this? The painted crosswalk near 15th and Chemawa intersection. That way, we're not getting into actual distances. We know what we're talking about.
I think it'd be better if he's 15th, Chemawa, and Walsh Way.
Oh, it's not even. In what?
Walsh Way. That Walsh is the entrance to the,
Yeah.
Brenda?
Rob, did you want to take this back to your association and discuss where they'd like to
We
put
should
the
probably
flag?
do that since,
Okay.
I mean, since my name's on it, I would rather,
Okay, so
rather it
let's
was
do
in my
that.
Find the
handwriting.
crosswalks.
Well, yeah, we'll just, so we'll just hold off on this one until you come back with a revised application, and then that's what we can submit to council.
Should just be.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
but
Thank
I'd
you,
still
Rob.
like you to come to our
Yeah,
meeting
sure.
because we want a partner.
Okay, so, in interest of time, I'm gonna skip over number 6.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. And then jump to 7. Does and we'll start with committee member input. We'll start with Matt. Do you have anything? David?
Just a quick thing, and Hirsch may want to, probably will add more. The Safe Routes to Schools has been working with like 6 elementary schools, and this I think starting March the 3rd, it's going to be at Clear Lake, which will be the one elementary school in Kaiser. And it's I think has been kind of an exciting program working with all 6 grades. Initially, kindergarten through third grade, second grade rather, mostly with balance bikes, and then third grade through fifth grade, actually learning how to ride on bikes and also safety measures and how to ride together. The thing I wanted to mention was that the program is partly possible because of both contributions from Kaiser and the city of Salem in helping move the trailers and which hold all the bicycles and things and equipment between the programs. And I know the coordinator, Beth Schmidt, is highly thankful for the contribution Kaiser has made and specifically mentioned Mike and helping to move the trailers and find a place to store them. So I want to thank the city of Kaiser for helping make that possible, and thank Mike and Public Works for their contribution, and I'm glad it's coming to a school in Kaiser.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, we pick it up tomorrow at 2:40 and bring it back to one of our pump stations for some maintenance, and then it goes back the following Friday to Harriet Elementary, maybe? And
That's
then-
where you're picking it up.
That's where we're picking it up,
And
okay.
This
And then
one
from there,
goes
it's
to
going
Clear Lake. Yeah.
Okay.
March 3rd.
All right, David, do you have anything for, okay, I don't either. Brenda?
No.
Hirsch?
David kind of, but we just did 3 weeks at Harriet Elementary, doing safe routes, and it'll be 3 weeks at Clear Lake. Excited to get something in Kaiser. It's been a long time coming. So we always do need some additional volunteers. It's a kind of an 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock time period that we need people. You do have to, if you do volunteer, you can pick a day to do it, but you do have to go through the Salem Kaiser School background check ahead of time. And if you're interested, let me know or David, and we can get on the list. Debbie Miller from the Bike Club is coordinating the names, and Beth is making sure the background checks and all that. Mary Ann and I are again starting our Thursday night family bike rides beginning March 6th, I think, the first Thursday of March, and we'll be starting at the Big Toy at 6 o'clock. We're changing the time to 6 o'clock because we've gotten feedback that the 6:30 is just a little bit too late for some people. Yeah, so yeah, it's bedtime for some of us. So although this is not exactly a traffic safety issue, but I wanted to tell about a program that may indirectly is, as Kaiser residents, we know that we've had an ongoing problem with graffiti and everywhere in Kaiser, and there's been an issue with that, and we only have one code compliance officer who is busy, and between the PGE, Salem Electric, and the other utilities, they all have different requirements and stuff, and just to get a ongoing crew to help paint those and take care of them has been kind of a bugaboo. So, with some help from the Northwest Kaiser Neighborhood Association, and partnering with the city, and Ben specifically, and the JROTC program at McNary, we have an ongoing program now. And the JROTC, this will be their ongoing community service. And we'll have our first paint session and a little bit of training on March 1st at 1 o'clock. So it's a go. Sergeant Hammond from the Air Force is all excited about it, and Ben has just, he was at the meeting Tuesday night, and we'll have a computer system, a GPS system, so we can log in when we paint them and everything. So it's just, and the kids, we have at least 28 kids wanting to work on it with parents. So.
All right, thank you.
So that's.
Okay, so staff? liaison. Mike, do you have anything, or staff report?
Thank you, Chair DeBosse. I've been in communication with City of Salem, their city engineer, Eric Destival, in regards to the River Road crosswalk delay adjustments that we've talked about, and those began today. So it'll be a 3-second delay, and he started on River Road at Shamawa, working their way south, and he'll complete the other ones from Shamawa to the north in the next couple of weeks, he said. So you'll be seeing that, and that will be for pedestrians crossing River Road east to west. So as a side street comes in, there's gonna be a delay and let people get out in and then turn. So that's been on my list for a while, and I've been back and forth, and we've had communication, and so I just got dialed in yesterday, so kind of cool. So
That's great.
You'll be
Thank
seeing
you
that.
very
Cool,
much.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I got more if you
Oh,
got a
please,
question.
yeah,
Or- Okay, next one is we're working on getting bids to replace 100 feet of 36-inch failing plastic stormwater pipe that goes to an outfall off Rock Ledge. We can get that taken care of. There's an in-water work, so that project should start towards the end of June. And we've been busy working on our resurfacing project for this year, putting streets together. So those are 2 items in the queue we're working on. And something that's coming up very quickly are River Road manholes. Got the construction, got the contractor on board, and today they did some saw cutting on River Road. They're gonna start that full swing Monday. And their finish date's middle of March, so you're gonna see minor delays on River Road. There's 25 manholes total. We're gonna also catch one at Lock Haven and Verda that everyone swings around. City of Salem sewer manhole. So yeah, added that one in there, and yeah, that's what I got.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Officer Powell, do you have anything?
The only thing I would add, other than our speed survey we've already discussed multiple times, is just a reminder of from the legal standpoint of the pedestrian flag program, that these are not to be used as crossing guards. They are not someone escorting people across. They are simply a flag the pedestrian themselves walk themselves across.
Okay, that's a good point.
I've heard stories of otherwise.
Thank you. No, it's going to be listed on the directions on the flag itself, so,
Okay.
well, not the flag, the holder. So hopefully people are intelligent and don't walk in front of moving cars.
Can I ask one quick question? Do we have any active pilot programs out there right now? No? Damn, okay, thank you.
Okay. Counselor, do we have any?
Thank you, Chair de Blasi. Just a couple things. Short and long-term goal-setting work session for the council will be next Monday on the 24th. And then on March 10th, the long-range planning task force meeting will occur, and that's the entire budget committee and the city council, which make up the budget committee. And then just probably the biggest news out of the meeting on Monday night was a resolution passed for the city to recognize the Kaiser Community Library as a public library. And that allows them to, that resolution allows them to submit an application to the state for official recognition as a public library. So long time coming. That opens up a lot of funding doors for the library through CCRLS. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm listed as the reporting to council on the 3rd. So Dawn or Melissa can give me my notes. I appreciate it. And then otherwise, I will adjourn the meeting.
Good job.
Yeah.